Hello, everyone. This is JPL, and today I am joined with
Jay.
And Christopher.
yes, and we are podcast name and brackets back for the monthly edition of the top five. And this month we're talking about the top five films of the year 2013. Yes, 2013, one of my favorite years of existing. Um, let's
Is it in your
see.
top, 27?
Yeah, pretty much like top three, I'd say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Hey, it's my favorite year, I think, in general. Yeah, freshman in high school, the first year where me and Jay first started collaborating. I started my YouTube channel this year. I got into Minecraft, lots of fun stuff. Started writing my books as well, so
Oh, yeah.
pretty solid year. Films, yeah, films. What about the
Yeah.
films of this year, Jay?
Yeah. Our top 10 at the box office worldwide is mostly sequels and prequels, but we do have two originals in here. Frozen, number one film of the year, big
Mm.
hit. And then Gravity, this completely original sci fi film that made it into the top 10. Massive hit. And yeah,
That's
the rest of it is
honestly
sequels.
nuts.
And I mean, yeah, I you have two major movie stars in like this big sci-fi film. It just hit at like just the right time. You also, I think the 3D thing
Mm.
really got people in theaters for it.
I think I'm just mind blown seeing it past Man of Steel.
Yeah. Superbad has odd box office potential as a character. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you, out of curiosity, did you see Gravity when it released in 3D?
I did not know.
Okay.
I missed it. I'm disappointed that I haven't gotten the chance to see it because it feels like that's the way to see it.
Hmm.
There was a lot of negativity in our area when that film came out, and so that kind of influenced us not watching it. At least for me.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I don't remember much about it except that I saw it on DVD at some point, and
The way
then,
God
well, yeah,
intended.
yeah, we may be talking more about this later.
Anyway, anyway.
But yeah, in terms of Oscars, Gravity once again in here actually wins Best Director this year for
Oh,
Alfonso Cuarón. Um, does not win Best Picture. That goes to 12 Years a Slave. Um, yeah, a lot of interesting movies here. Wolf of Wall Street. A lot of people like that. I'm not as big a fan of that one, but yeah, Captain Phillips, American Hustle. Well, people can look at that or look that up. But yeah, weird year. And then yeah, in terms of other awards, Blue is the Warmest Color wins the Palme d'Or. This is actually the first and so far only time that the award is shared between the director and the lead actresses. That had never happened before. It was controversial at the time because the award had only ever been given to the director, though in retrospect, knowing what we know about the production of the film, it seems like the director is actually the one who doesn't deserve the recognition for this movie. Both of the actresses have come out and said that they felt uncomfortable during production and that he was not treating them well. Um, yeah, I have not seen that one. It was on my list of things to watch, but I don't know. It seems a little weird to watch it. But then, yeah, the Golden Lion went to Sacro Gra, which I had never heard of before writing this up. The Razzie goes to Movie 43, very infamous movie, often considered the worst of all time. Having seen it, I find a lot of the negative response a bit hyperbolic, but it's not good. And then MTV Movie of the Year is The Hunger Games: Catching Fire.
Yes. Well, why do we get into our number fives?
Yeah, so my number five is a movie that I thought was bigger than it actually was, just because I saw the trailer a lot in theaters. And this is Europa Report. This is directed by Sebastian Cordero, written by Philip Gelat, who is one of the main writers on Love, Death, and Robots.
Hmm.
And you can see a lot of that DNA here in terms of how this film is made, or not made, what the film is about. This is about an international team of scientists and astronauts who are sent on a mission to Jupiter's moon Europa to investigate it for signs of life. They discover, of course, as we know about Europa, it has liquid water underneath the ice. So this team is sent out to dig through the ice and see if they can find anything. Yeah, this is a found footage movie technically, but it doesn't overdo it with the handheld shots. It's mainly just, camera perspectives from inside this ship. It's instead used to sort of enhance this documentary style that the movie is going for. It's in a similar vein to other sort of hardish sci-fi thrillers like Sunshine or Gravity from the same year, where it's based in real life science and physics, but exaggerated and heightened for dramatic effect. This is still a sci-fi film. And yeah, it has a lot of one of my favorite things in these types of movies, which is scientists standing around and talking about making difficult decisions for the sake of the mission. And yeah, this is a low budget film. It's interesting that this came out the same year as Gravity because they have certain similarities, but are so wildly different in terms of budget and in terms of style and what even just the number of characters who are on screen is so wildly different. The effects here haven't aged the best, but the found footage aesthetic actually helps in that regard because it's like it doesn't look nearly as bad because the found footage already has a level. Um, which makes the effects still work today, even though you can definitely tell what's CG and what isn't. It isn't perfect. There's a non-chronological structure that leads to some weird decisions in terms of pacing, but I will say that the last 30 minutes of this are just excellent. It finally like locks in and you are invested in the mission and these characters and figuring out what is going on here. If you're a fan of this kind of movie, this is a really worthwhile watch. And I will also say that as someone who is fascinated and terrified by both space and the deep sea, Europa is like the perfect place to set a horror movie for me. Because it's both. It's both.
Yeah. We talked about this like a couple days ago, not in the podcast, but
Yeah.
you were asking me if I like remember seeing the trailers. I don't, so I remember the name. You maybe talked. I don't know. All I remember is the name, and that's about it.
Okay. I thought maybe the poster would spark your memory, but
no, nothing sparks here.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it myself.
Fair.
Yeah.
Again, it was in the US. It was not a major release. But yeah, where John and I were, I think I saw the trailer in front of like every movie that I went to see for several months.
So you mentioned Gravity.
Yes.
I put that at 5. If I'm being honest, I'm looking at the movies I've watched this year. I don't necessarily know if I'd put it at 5, but I have an affinity for it, and I think talk about it. Unlike, respectfully, I think looking at my list, my number 5 might have been something like Despicable Me 2, and I genuinely don't really remember what happens in that movie, so I just don't have anything to talk about it. But I have stuff to talk about Gravity. So back in 2020, the fall of 2020, pretty positive it was, had a class, a sound design class. Don't remember necessarily what the name of the class was, all the details, but it was sound design related. And professor had us pick a movie from a list and redo the sound design for a minute of that movie. And I think he picked movies that were like nominated for like best sound, if not won. And I don't remember what made this one stand out, because some of the other movies on the list were probably like war related, and I was like, I don't want to watch a war movie. Understandable. Specifically, me back then, like I didn't want to handle with the visual side of things, and so probably was that Gravity was probably like the least visual on the list. So I picked Gravity, and so I watched this movie at least once, but it's possible I watched it twice in prep, um, and try to replicate a scene. Um, I doubt it's great, but I did the thing. But yeah, I do have an affinity for it because it was kind of one of my first movies I'd kind of seen. It was around the time that John showed me Inception. It was that semester. That much I do know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I only know that because of the timing of things, and like you showed it to me that semester because I had a certain meeting that would have only happened that semester, and then I remember in that dorm working on this project. Um, so yeah, so I have affinity for it. So the movie itself, um, I am not the biggest fan. To a degree, I think I really so it's like I kind of like it, but I don't love it. Um, what can I say? Because I know it's been like 12 years since it's been released, but I also hate talking about spoilers. But I think like that one scene kind of just the one scene in that middle doesn't make sense in terms of space physics.
Yeah,
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, did they? How did that not come up? Or was the story so important that it had to override the space physics for them to do that? But it just doesn't feel make sense, and probably wasn't something I caught initially while watching it. But still, it does make it a little frustrating. Maybe I did. I don't remember. I genuinely don't remember. It's been 5 years. 5 years. Wow, man, 5 years. Um, but I do. I remember as a kid, like growing up and being curious about space, and so this movie is entirely, virtually, on space, and um, you know, you're in space, and then there are these ship things. It it's cool. It's great. It's well done. You know what I mean? So it feels like a mixed bag where I don't necessarily think like everything works for everyone, and it certainly doesn't necessarily work for me. But again, I have an affinity for it because I had a school project for it, so I worked hard on it, and to a degree, the movie's kind of been part of my DNA as a result. It
Hmm.
just,
Yeah.
there's so many movies I'm just so passive about whether I love them or I don't. I go to a theater, I watch them, and the end. But this one, I'm like, I had to recreate a minute of it basically, in terms of the audio. So yeah, it kind of sticks with me in that way. So special to me. With
Yeah.
that, so when I started buying Blu-rays, this was definitely one of the first ones I purchased. Again, Infinity. But then I was like doing research. Actually, no, I was doing this research when I was working on the project. I found out that they released a version of this movie without the score.
Oh.
So,
Huh.
especially this whole concept of so like the sound design was very much like, okay, there's no sound in space, so how do we communicate that through the sound design? And there a handful of times the perspective is like from the person in the suit and to do the sound design like that, but just there's obviously no music in space, so how do you like accurately replicate that without music basically? So to release a version of that, I was obsessed with that thought, like I have to check this out. But this movie released in 2013. I don't remember when the physical version released. I think this Diamond Lux version released in 2014 and is sold out, out of
Mm.
print. Copies on eBay going for, let's say, $300. I don't remember exactly. At least
Yeah.
100.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang it! I really, 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 really want to buy it. I really want to check it out, but I don't want to spend all that money, and it's not like I love this movie with all my heart. Um, then last year, they actually released like it might be a made on demand, I don't remember, but a version. Warner Brothers re-released Gravity with that bonus disc from that Diamond Lux version that
Oh,
has the version without the music. And I immediately bought it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to watch this for 4 years. I can't wait. And at that time, I was definitely watching a lot of movies with my roommate. Um, and I was very much like, okay, this, not that I love Gravity, but we have to like check out these two versions or whatever. And that just never really happened.
mm,
With that, also, so the original standard release didn't have a Dolby Atmos mix. I think the Diamond Lux version had, and so did this new standard, maybe made on demand, so-called Diamond Lux version. I think so. Like the movie had the Atmos mix, and then so now I'm like, well, my uncle has a Dolby Atmos set up. Maybe I'll re-experience the original version of the movie there, because I hear it's one of the best like home Atmos mixes. So let me do that. And I don't remember the last time I tried is Up Fires weren't working. So I was like, what's the point? What's the point? I'm not gonna watch it now if those aren't working. So that was earlier this year. So I think I'm gonna see him next weekend, but I don't know if I'll get around to it because I'm planning to watch Avatar 2 in the afternoon, and I drive to see him, and I think I'm getting there like 8 p.m. So will I watch it? I don't know. So it just
yeah,
sucks right
yeah,
now because I've legitimately been like 5 years been wanting to watch this, and I just haven't gotten around to it. I
yeah.
want to. I own it. I plan to watch it. I'm really excited to watch it, especially again, my experience with it is related to the sound design. So that's, but yeah. Anyways, that's my whole story with Gravity.
Yeah, it's interesting how I haven't done many scene recreations, but I did in college do a scene recreation, and it does help you appreciate the work that went into it on a different level, especially with like
Amen.
sound design, which can be, I mean, literally invisible because you can't see sound, but a really good sound mix you aren't paying attention to. It's just kind of, it's there and it's working for you. So yeah, that does sound like a very interesting experience that then makes you appreciate the, and this is like, this movie is the technical side first above everything else. So the sound design is even more important than with a lot of other films.
Yeah.
John, have you seen Gravity?
I have. I remember when you were doing this project, Christopher. You were very proud of the work you'd done. You kept showing it to me. Like, does this sound good? I was like, yes. I remember you were very. You kept telling me how awkward it was to record.
Oh
The
yeah. I
girl's
don't.
lot.
I
Yeah.
don't want to tell that story, but then after recording, like, wow, that was actually way more awkward than it should have been. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. No, I watched this film last year, and I think it's a very nice visual spectacle. I really liked the first 20, 30 minutes because they were a
Oh
wonder,
yeah.
a
That, yeah.
digital
That
wonder.
yeah. That like first
Yes.
12 minutes is like no cut. So cool.
Um, but besides that, I have no care for the story or the characters. Um, it was just cool, fun visual spectacle. Which 98% of the film is just VFX. Like barely anything in it was real. Um, which is cool on a technical level, but yeah, I wouldn't go back to this because like, I really want to care about this character surviving this thing. It's like, nah, I want to see how good this still looks. So,
Yeah, I'm on in a similar place as John. I actually saw this on DVD around the time it came out, and saw it with my mom and sister, and we were all like, "Oh, that was a little bit disappointing." And obviously, we're watching it on a TV instead of in the theater in 3D, so that's not the intended experience with this one. But then I had only seen it that one time, so a few days ago I was like, "Hey, this is a genre that I have come to appreciate a whole lot more in the years since, watching Interstellar and going back and watching Sunshine, and even The Martian has similar yeah. So it was I was like, "Oh, I should give this a second shot." And I watched it again and had basically the same response of, "Oh, this is really well done technically, and I don't care about the characters or story." Um yeah, it's I talked about Europa Report. One of my favorite things in this genre is the crew talking about the difficult decisions they have to make for the sake of the mission. In this one, not to spoil too much, there's not a lot of whole crew talking about anything here after the first maybe 30 minutes. Um, so that element isn't quite there. And yeah, I just never felt invested in the story. That said, I think the individual sequences in this are so well constructed in terms of the technical aspect, in terms of the performance aspect, that it's like I have to respect the film, even though I don't think it like comes together perfectly. Like it's just so well made.
So moving on to my sci-fi entry, uh, I have The Hunger Games: Catching Fire. This is the sequel to the other one. Um, I remember when this was coming out, like it was like one of the hypest things that we had all year. I think we saw as a group, you and me and Jay, and
I
we had a
don't think
fan
we
that
did.
I think we did because we had that other friend who was very obsessed with
I think
Hunger
that was one of
Games.
the later ones that we saw together.
I thought we saw this one together.
Maybe
I
we
thought
did.
I think this is like one of the earlier ones that the earlier films that we saw together.
Okay.
'Cause I remember standing waiting for a ride home. I think
Okay.
so.
Well, maybe we
Yeah,
did.
yeah. The sequel, the stakes are a bit higher. I guess a little more personal. It ends in a way that was like excitement for the next films, and then I was disappointed by the next films. Um, yeah, some more intrigue, some more stuff here that's pretty cool. Why don't you tell us some more about this film, Jay?
Yeah, this is, as you were saying, this is the second Hunger Games film out of four plus a couple prequels. Yeah, this is they brought in a new director here, Francis Lawrence, and after the first one, they were worried. Well, with the first one, they were worried that the violence would be too much for a PG-13 rating, so they had a lot of very shaky handheld shots in the first one to kind of obscure the violence. But with this one, they were able to. Now they were a little bit more confident, so the camera is a lot more steady, more clamped down, and it just feels a whole lot nicer of an experience to watch. And yeah, this is as a Hunger Games fan, this book was always my favorite of the books. So getting to see it adapted was really, really interesting, and I had a great time with it. My memory of watching this in the theater is actually that I saw it with our English teacher. Um, we were happened to be in the same theater. We hadn't planned that ahead of time. Um, but yeah, no, this is sort of expanding on the world of the Hunger Games, and we're seeing the beginnings of this political movement, this resistance movement, and the roles that these characters play in it. Um, and yeah, eventually, I mean, I don't know if it's really spoilers, but yeah, we end up back in the games, and yeah, it's just very exciting. There's like a gimmick to the games that you have to kind of figure out.
Hmm.
Um,
And
yeah,
the
this
supporting
is my
cast is
favorite.
also like
Oh
much
yeah,
more memorable than the first one as well.
yeah, we're getting no offense to Jack Quaid, that isn't his best role in the first movie. But yeah, here we're getting, because the gimmick of these games allows them to bring in more adult actors, more experienced actors. So we're getting, Jeffrey Wright is in this. We're getting Jenna Malone, who's always fun. Sam Claflin. We're getting a whole bunch of more adult actors sort of outside of the games as well.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Yeah.
very, very good. This is just like it's a leveling up from the first movie in a way that's just very exciting to see. And since this is my favorite of the books, it's nice that this ends up being such a good adaptation. Also, yeah, you said the ending. The ending is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The note it ends on is just so good.
Yep. I remember watching the ending in theaters, being like, "Oh, can't wait for the next one." And then, yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm up next, aren't I? Yeah. My number 4 is called GBF. I don't know how many people are aware of this movie. I know that I on Letterboxd am one of the few champions of it. This is on my this is my things that I rated higher than other people than average. This is the second one on that list for me. This is written by George Northy and Darren Stein and directed by Darren Stein. And it's a coming of age comedy about a gay high schooler who is accidentally outed. And the leaders of the school's various social cliques try to win him over to their side, since having a GBF, which stands for gay best friend, is seen as a status symbol. And this is Mean Girls for anyone who was a closeted gay teen in the early to mid 2000 or 2010s. It is a little unpolished. Some of the performances, some of the dialogue aren't always in top form, but it is just so charming. And those, like, the little unpolished elements actually add to the charm. There's sort of a campy quality to this, and even a bit of unintentional camp, I think, as well. I don't know that it's always going for that, but it is achieving that. This is just, I find this movie so hilarious from start to finish. I love puns. This movie has some fun puns. There's one of the social cliques is led by a Mormon character, and her interactions are just always so funny. The way they satirize sort of Mormonism, and it's like, it isn't done mean spiritedly. It's done with a sense of understanding for where this character is coming from, but also, I mean, it is making light of sort of her attitudes towards certain things. Some of the jokes haven't aged super well, as is to be expected, but I find for the most part that the jokes do still work really well here. And especially if you have a lived experience that is similar to the thing that the film is portraying, of just, being in high school. There's just so much here that is very good. I think I saw this while I was still in high school a few years after it came out. This also has just like a really, really great supporting cast. My favorite, there's a whole bunch of like great actors, but my personal favorite here is Ivana Lynch, aka Luna Lovegood from the Harry Potter movies. She plays the homophobic Christian girl who is like going after everyone, and she has some like really clunky dialogue, but just absolutely sells every word of it so well. She's just a lot of fun in here. And yeah, it also has some nice, if generic, messages about, being a teenager and identity and that kind of stuff. I watch this movie pretty much every year. I recently had someone ask me, "Oh, what's your comfort movie?" And I didn't have an answer prepared. But my first thought of this one, it was like, "Oh, I don't know. This person obviously isn't going to know this movie, and I don't know what their response will be if I say this one." So I said something else. But this is probably my comfort movie.
Yeah, I haven't heard of this, but now I have.
Yep.
You know me.
John's a big fan of this one.
He loves this.
Yeah, the BFG.
Yes, it is the same letters as the BFG. Very different. I would say one of them is significantly better than the other. Based on what I have just said, you can probably guess which one I think is better.
Hmm.
My number 4 is called The Berlin File, which is a Korean film. The director has directed some for Korea popular films, specifically the movie Veteran. I think is his most popular. I think, um, but if not one of, um, but yeah. So Berlin File was a movie that released before that. Um, and also I watched this last year, so it wasn't a recent watch, so I don't necessarily remember a lot of details, but it's just it's a well-made movie that moves and I believe was interesting. I'm doing a great job describing. Basically, if I'm being honest, this is kind of my token Korean movie mention. It's a solid movie. I don't think it's like, oh my gosh, best. There's a lot of people like Korean cinema is the best, and we have great. They have great movies, but also a lot of people kind of just talk about like top like 20, which are still great.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the top 20, but it's a solid movie. So you like all that like government, you know, action stuff. Solid movie. Not my favorite, but well done movie. Yeah, might not work for everyone. Because I don't even necessarily think it fully worked for me, but like I respect the movie.
Yeah, I hadn't ever heard of this one, but it does look very interesting. And I will say the for people who are watching the video, the middle still here is giving some very Infernal Affairs vibes, the Hong Kong film that then inspired the Martin Scorsese film The Departed.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so I wonder if that's an intentional call out or just sort of a coincidence. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I haven't seen either of those films, and I don't remember that still. So I can't tell you.
Yeah, you know me.
No, I don't.
Who are you?
Well,
Wait,
I'm
Christopher, who is this other person on the call with us?
I don't know. I don't know. I just woke up. I don't know.
I'm the guy in the chair who sits there and stares at you while you do your presentation.
If he just stopped that guy in the chair, I would have said Mulholland Drive reference.
I would have
well,
said Spider-Man Homecoming reference. Guess we know which of us
Oh,
is a true
yes.
cinephile and which of us has trash taste.
Oh man, it took me a moment. Like where was? Yeah.
Anyway, my number 4 is a biodrama called An Adventure in Space and Time. And it is about the story about how the original Doctor Who TV show came about the early production and the lead actor going through health issues that would eventually lead to an iconic legacy of how the show is structured. But it's very interesting. It's pretty well done. As someone who's a fan of the Doctor Who TV show, this was made to celebrate 50 years, and I found it interesting and fascinating, and it does a really good job at telling the story and letting you know how actors feel about things. I would recommend it for anyone curious about the creation of Doctor Who. It's a decent TV film thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know much about Doctor Who's history, so this would be very informative for me to watch, even though I don't watch Doctor Who. So I feel like I would be more likely to watch this documentary than to get invested in Doctor Who, since that seems like a very large undertaking.
Hmm. Yeah, I will say it was very cool to see them like recreate like old sets and props to do this film. Even like the lead actor that they chose to portray William Hartnell just did a phenomenal job that eventually that they would use him again for the actual show proper.
Oh,
For
that's really cool.
yeah. Yeah. I forget what his name is. We know him as Filch from Harry Potter.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason I
I
can't
think
remember his
it's
name at the
David Bradley.
that might very well be the case. Yes. David
Yeah.
Bradley.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I guess it's my turn now. My number 3 is a bit of an odd film, the one that is probably more well known than either of the other two that I have brought up, and that is Under the Skin. This is written by Milo Adika, Walter Campbell, and Jonathan Glazer, and directed by Glazer, who is, of course, probably most well known at this point for directing The Zone of Interest. But yeah, this is a very different film, the one that has sort of a similar unsettling feeling to it. It's a sci-fi thriller where Scarlett Johansson plays an alien who is sent to Earth to seduce and kill men. It's never fully explained what she's doing, but yeah. Um, it's as this is going on, she sort of starts to question her mission and her place in the world. And yeah, it's this very dark and very slow film, but one that is incredibly engaging and well made. I think this is one of the first A24 films that I saw. I would have seen it probably in like late 2015 um, on Netflix once my parents got a Netflix account. Um, yeah, this is a really fascinating, dark, but almost hypnotic film. The story is told almost entirely through visuals. Um, the dialogue doesn't really connect directly back to the story, which I'll explain in a second. But yeah, it's so well made and so interesting. There's an incredible soundtrack by the artist Mika Levy. This is their first film score. And they have gone on to do some pretty incredible work. They've worked with Jonathan Glazer on The Zone of Interest. They also did, I think they were Oscar nominated for the score for Jackie. They're one of my favorite composers. One of the composers who, if I hear that they've done a soundtrack, I will actually try and seek out the film that they've worked on. And yeah, the scenes of Scarlett Johansson picking up men are pretty famously, they were improvised. This was actually Scarlett Johansson was actually driving around Scotland picking up random men, and they had like hidden cameras in the van that they were filming these scenes with, and then they would obviously ask the people after they had done the scene of like, hey, just so you know, we were filming you, are you okay with being in this movie? But then they did actually bring one actual actor. They brought in Adam Pearson, who got pretty popular last year for his role in A Different Man. So yeah, really interesting and odd little film. It's one of A24's early releases, so if you're an A24 fan, definitely interesting to see this. Yeah, it's one that has stuck with me. I saw this sort of back when I was starting to get into a wider variety and more artistically minded films, and this has stuck with me since as just a really odd but engaging experience.
I think I've heard of it, but that's it.
Yeah, and you know me.
This is one where if it hadn't been a horror movie, I might have made all my friends in high school watch it with me at a certain point. So you probably narrowly avoided watching this one.
I would have hated it.
Yeah, you would have hated it.
All right. Oh, my number 3 is a movie called Coherence. I actually watched this one last night. This is an independent movie that apparently has kind of had like a bit of a modern so like
Reevaluation?
not reevaluation, no. Because like a lot of indie movies like fly under the radar, you just never hear about them, but this one is so effective that it's kind of grown slowly in quiet popularity. So I think I saw the term almost like cult following. I've not observed or seen, I've definitely seen kind of like how like people kind of hear about like, oh, I should check this out. Wow, this is good. Let me tell this to other people. I kind of see that movement for sure. So
Okay.
so much so last year, some kind of follow up was announced, but I don't know where that is in
Oh.
that process. But yeah, so but yeah, the so it's almost like maybe movies I've talked about that are long, like Heaven's Story, that it's like it's really I like it because it's ambitiously long, or it's almost like Hundreds of Beavers, where it's like it's incredible what they were able to do with so little and for what it is, and to some degree, you can almost kind of go with that what it is route, and you if- yeah, so yeah, you could kind of go down that route of the what it is for coherence because I think I saw the budget was $50,000. Um, I found out that it was actually largely improv.
Oh.
The actors did not know each other. So
Huh.
basically, four couples meet at a dinner, and a comet goes overhead, and realities kind of like the because it goes into like the quantum stuff. So definitely before our modern, or at least a couple of years ago when we were inundated with multiverse stories. But yeah, it's so really what it is that a very smart story that was crafted, and kind of almost the idea of most of the movie being set in this living room, but making that space bigger than it actually is with this kind of story. And I think it does that really well. I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the episode about talking about like quality. I struggled a little with this with say like cinematography. The cinematography feels almost like documentary style.
Huh.
But that after hearing the fact that it was a largely improv movie, that kind of makes sense as the
Yeah.
camera is looking for the people who are going to talk, and that zoom in, try to get the focus correct kind of vibe that a documentary would have is prevalent, especially at the beginning of this film, or at least I noticed it more. Um, and maybe I got used to it, or maybe it wasn't as prevalent as the movie progressed. So it was a little hard. That was a little bit of a barrier for me to get past getting into the movie because that's just not how movies are shot unless like it's a mockumentary kind of movie, but it's not. It's just you know uh, what the movie is, which is really cool. Of like, oh, this is um, these are our limits, and let's try to make this movie seem bigger than the limits that we have. So, um, yeah, it's pretty well received from what I see. I don't claim to love it as other people do, but there's definitely one moment, like with 30 minutes left, where my brain broke and I was struggling. Like I thought I was keeping up, and then my brain just broke, and I was like, "What?" And trying to put the pieces together, um, kind of almost like my first time watching Inception.
Hmm.
Kind of like the things are building, and then it's like your brain had never thought this possibility before, and you're struggling to comprehend. Not that it's the same as Inception, but I'm saying my reaction was a little similar to when I did see Inception, of my brain just breaking for a moment. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I can't keep up. What the heck? How? So it was kind of cool and dare I say almost frustrating because I haven't been bamboozled by a movie like this in so long. Because it's like, oh, I've seen hundreds of movies at this point. There's no way I can get bamboozled again, and then this $50,000 movie bamboozles me. Insane. Yeah, actually, watching the movie, there was a moment where I was wondering, like, how, like, almost like, wouldn't it be interesting if, like, the people didn't receive their full script and they were reacting to things, or like, oh, are they receiving this information for the first time? And I had that thought, and then to find out that was kind of the case. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like an actor would kind of receive their like motivations, kind of thing, and be playing off that. For it. It was shot in 5 days as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. This movie is kind of cool. I think definitely the behind the scenes kind of makes it kind of establishes it cooler than kind of the movie itself. For me, at least, I think a lot of people will find the movie at its base level very cool. But yeah, I'm curious what a rewatch would be like, because I think like that main twist, not main twist, that thing that broke me, that concept won't necessarily break me, but then I think I will be rewatching the movie and trying to watch those pieces almost separate, dare I say, as I'm watching it. So yeah, very, very, very interesting movie.
Yeah, I was just looking it up, and I saw people comparing it to Primer, which is one that I saw a few months ago for, I think, the 2005 or 2006 episode. Another sort of low budget sci-fi type thing. So yeah, that definitely makes me curious to see. And what you've been saying of how it's a bit of a mind-bending one. I sometimes enjoy those types of movies. Often enjoy those types of movies. So yeah, I'll have to find a time to watch this one as well.
John, is this of any interest to you?
Vaguely, I guess.
Copy.
That's a better response than I've gotten this episode. So
I don't know if I'll remember it if it pops up in my feed. If it pops up in my feed one day and I'm like, oh, okay, science fiction. I feel like that today. Then sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of like science fiction and multiverse, for my number 3, I have the DC animated film Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. And this is the story of where the Flash finds himself in an alternate reality where his mom is still alive. Everything is like completely different. Where it's like, instead of Batman's parents dying, what if Bruce Wayne died as a kid? Or what if the Amazons and Atlantis go to war against each other? So a bunch of different things going on. Flash has to go and try to save the day and get back to his own timeline, and then hijinks with like villains do stuff. This is the film that the 2023 Flash movie was trying to quote unquote adapt.
Yeah.
Not very great though. I like this for its ideas. I like seeing the very different usage of its characters. Like when you tell me multiverse and different versions of characters, I'm not wanting to get like the nostalgia of like old actors. I want to see the different versions of these characters like this, which is pretty cool. This is one of the last of the DC films to have like quality animation, because the next few years things start to like they try to save money, and so it doesn't look as great. So this is kind of the last of those moments, but it's a pretty sad and depressing film ish, depending on how it ends. But it's pretty cool for Flash. It's the only Flash film, really. I mean, there's others, I guess, but this is Flash's big story. So if you want Flash, there's this film.
Yeah. This is what I'll eventually get around to when I get more into the DC animated movies. But yeah, I mean, this is an iconic comic story, which, like a lot of the DC animated movies, they're sort of going and picking stories and adapting them directly from the comics, where the movies tend to use the comics more as like a broad inspiration.
Yeah, more of a thematic idea, or like I, I guess like a concept point versus an actual adaptation point.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Animation. Sorry.
Well,
Actually,
yeah.
that's sorry to kind of harp on that point. I think last episode I mentioned like documentaries, and I actually can't deny. I think I also need to look beyond the fact that something is animated. Ironically, my favorite film is an animated film, um, but I definitely need to be more open minded about animated films. So that's
You
something I'm trying
do.
to work on. I know I do. I literally I actually can't. I'll be honest. The amount of highly rated movies I see on Letterboxd that I don't add to my watch list because they're animated, it's actually a crime. I need to get over myself. I apologize. I'm
Don't
working on it.
don't make me drive down there and smack you.
Do it.
Give the artist the respect. Animation's a dying breed. AI is taking over.
That's
Anyway,
true. That's true. Yeah, I do respect the medium. I wish. I think like even like John has seen my journey in like the past 5 years of like how I was like, and now where I am with movies, and I can only imagine that in a few years I'll be more passionate about animation than John. We'll see.
I'd love to see
Yeah.
that actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my number 2 movie is a little French film called Stranger by the Lake. This is written and directed by Alain Girardet, and it follows Frank, who's a French man who spends his afternoons at a gay cruising spot. And then he stays later than normal one evening and witnesses one man drown another in the lake. And then he gets wrapped up in both the investigation and in a sort of romance with the killer. And yeah, this is, you might guess from this description, this is sort of a Hitchcockian inspired thriller. I hesitate a little bit to use that because that is sort of like overused when describing this, but I mean, those elements are there, sort of the rear window, but with a little bit of a Rebecca in there, maybe. And yeah, I loved everything about this film except the ending. The ending is one of those that's like very thematically deep, but a little bit narratively unsatisfying, which I sometimes struggle with those more than I want to admit. Um, but yeah, this is just a really good exploration of a location and a culture. There's sort of a timeless sense to this that you never find out when exactly this is set. Um, but it seems to be set at some point in like the 80s or 90s. And yeah, it's just sort of this like look at this culture that doesn't quite exist in the same way anymore. This is a single location film and it like never cheats that single location scene. We never see anything outside of what happens on this beach or in the surrounding woods. Even though it's like it's set over multiple days and we actually get this sort of routine of like, you know, each set of sequences starts with Frank's car pulling into the parking lot and then ends with him leaving the parking lot. And then we never follow him beyond that point. We're just seeing what happens in these few hours that he is by this lake. And yeah, there's a bit of a routine. It kind of reminds me of sort of certain narrative video games where it's like he shows up every day and he talks to like the same 3 people and we see where those conversations go. Um, yeah, we get such a sense for all of the different people who show up at this beach every day and what they're all sort of looking for and what they desire. And yeah, it's just so interesting. This is very much not a movie for everyone. Um, it is set at a gay cruising spot. They don't play coy with that. Yeah, you see a lot of stuff here. If you are not interested in seeing that stuff, this is not the movie for you. And then yeah, the unsatisfying ending is, I think, has a lot of thematic depth to it, but it is still a little bit unsatisfying. Um, but yeah, no, this is just a fascinating little film. I'm very glad to have seen it. I'd heard about it a lot, and then finally decided for this list to watch it. And yeah, it's my number 2 of the year.
You know me. Haven't seen or heard this.
Yep.
Actually, I was just looking at some list on Letterbox of someone like like great films from every year I was alive, and this one was actually on that list. I was just looking at that.
Oh, okay. Neat.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
very well received by critics at the time it came out, which kind of surprises me because it feels like it would have had a more polarizing response. But yeah, I mean, it's like very well made. It's just it is also a very explicit film in a way that I thought would have turned more people away from it.
My number 2, I put Her at number 2, and I'll also be honest. I don't know if I have a lot to say. I watched this earlier this year, I think, or sometime last year. Probably within the past 12-ish. I doubt 18, but probably the last 12 months. And so it's very odd watching this, especially for a first time in today's era, where this almost kind of just seems like what life is today than a sci-fi future.
Yeah.
So very interesting and kind of wild how, not for everyone, but for some people, how accurate this movie is. Yeah, I don't necessarily. I almost thought about not putting this on the list just because I don't necessarily have a lot to say. But I was like, well, it's a good movie, and we are talking about the best movies of the year, so
Yeah.
it might as well be on that list. So yeah, it's a solid film. Yeah, I don't have notes written down from when I saw it. I don't necessarily have a lot to say about it right now, but it's a well done movie. Also, Chris Pratt jump scare.
I had forgotten that he was in this one. I haven't seen this one, and actually I'm gonna double check. I may have seen it even before I had a Letterboxd account.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I don't remember a ton about it. It wasn't my favorite. I don't think there is any version of this movie that I would have loved, but yeah, I don't have anything negative to say either.
When did you get Letterboxd?
2017, early 2017. So I
Nice.
probably saw this in like 2015 or 16.
John, when did you get Letterboxd?
When did I get it? I got it in 22.
22?
Yeah.
Do you remember who got it first, me or you?
Good question. I think maybe you.
It may have been me, because I know I have a couple logs in 21, but I don't remember those are retrospective logs. And I do remember, like, for a time, I wasn't good about logging movies, and you were getting onto me, like, you should log what you watch. And I'm like, but, me. And then now I regret it. All right. John?
Yeah. I've heard of this film. I've not seen it. I know. I think you own it, Jay, in your digital
Probably
library.
somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there. There's at least a Joaquin Phoenix film in there that is there. But moving on to my number 2, I talked already about the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who and how they made a documentary, but they also made a special, and this is technically an episode of a TV show, but they premiered this in a theater. And yes, and so I was really excited. I was all really hyped for the 50th anniversary. That I got the last ticket at the theater. It was sold out. And so I got a front row seat, and it was in 3D as well.
Oh,
But it was like the most hypest thing ever, because at that point I had never been in a room of like fans of like fandom. Like that was like a new thing to me. And so being in a room with like 100 people watching something, all of us like being excited. I dressed up for the occasion, I got like a makeshift costume that I made. It was pretty fun, pretty cool. One of the most best movie theater experiences of my life. And yeah, it was a fun anniversary. They brought back older actors. The story is kind of like a culmination of like the past 10 years of that show, that rebooted show. But yeah, it was pretty cool, pretty fun. Um, yeah, that's without going into spoilers. That's what I'll say.
I remember you talking about seeing this way back when you saw it. So I had forgotten the detail that you got a front row seat, but when you started saying that, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that detail. And I think you wore the costume to like a Halloween thing at some point, or like Harvest Fest.
I I I mean, yeah, I think this was around the time of Harvest Fest, and so like I wore the costume at school because we were doing something there. We were setting up for Harvest Fest, and then I went to the theater after that point.
Okay,
So
yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
do remember you wearing the costume. So
yeah. So yeah. Before we talk about our number ones, why don't we get into our honorable mentions?
yeah. So as usual, I have organized these alphabetically. Um, First up, I have Beautiful Creatures, which is this post Twilight supernatural romance. But this time, the twist is that the boy is the normal human who is at the center of the story, and it's the girl who's the supernatural person. Um, and Alden Ehrenreich plays the normal boy, and he is so charming. Like, he makes this movie. Um, yeah, this also has a great supporting cast, including Jeremy Irons and Emmy Rossum, both actors who I love, who are just having an absolute blast chewing the scenery. Um, then, speaking of films that feel closer to reality than they did when they came out, I have The Congress, which is this very weird but very prescient animated sci fi film. It is about Robin Wright, the actress, of course, of Princess Bride fame, who decides to sell her likeness to be digitally placed in movies in order to afford surgery for her young son. Um, and then it goes from there. It's partially or like mostly animated and just this very gorgeous 2D animation. I won't say much else. I haven't seen it in several years, but it is like every time there's a new headline about actors being digitized or that kind of thing, I'm like, ah, yes, The Congress. I have seen this in a sci-fi film. Um, The Conjuring. This is, I think, the first quote unquote real horror movie I ever saw. I had seen Alien and a couple of sort of like sci-fi genre type horror films, but yeah, this is just a really well-made horror flick from James Wan, who's one of my favorite directors, which was very like artfully made and helped move the culture away from the torture porn genre that he had actually helped popularize, since he was also the director of Saw. So yeah, I always find it interesting that he did both Saw and The Conjuring, which are sort of two different sides of the horror spectrum. Then I have The Great Gatsby, which I don't love as much now, but I was absolutely obsessed with this when it was coming out. I probably became the only middle schooler to have read the book without it being assigned for a class, and I absolutely loved it. I've loved it ever since. It's one of my favorite novels ever. In retrospect, the movie doesn't quite capture what I like about the book, but I appreciate the maximalist approach, and it just sort of it swings for the fences and is just very fascinating to watch. Then I have Mike Flanagan's Oculus, which is this really great little horror flick. It's like all of his best work, it's scary, but more so it is incredibly emotionally moving. And there's an element of tragedy here that really sticks with you. Um, Philomena. This is just a really well made British historical drama. Um, I have a little side project, a memory game that I play where I try and memorize all of the Oscar Best Picture nominees. And I have the 2010s down pretty well. But there's always one per year where I'm like, I always forget about it. And Philomena was that for 2013 for me. It always seemed a little out of place in the Best Picture lineup until I actually watched it. And it might be my favorite of the Best Picture lineup. Um, yeah, really sweet little movie. Rush is just this really, really well made racing movie from Ron Howard, sort of reinvigorating his career. And then last up, I have Saving Mr. Banks, which is a little bit generic and a sanitized retelling of the making of Mary Poppins, but it reframed how I think of Mary Poppins and made me understand it on a different level than I had when I watched it as a kid. And Emma Thompson is just incredible here. Tom Hanks as well is very good, but Emma Thompson just, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Out of these films, I have seen The Great Gatsby and Saving Mr. Banks. So yeah.
My honorable mentions. There's no real order. I probably should go the alphabetical route, because I like that. The two I did put together, and they're at the end, but whatever. Despicable Me 2 and Anchorman 2 are sequels. I like the Despicable Me movies. I like Minions. I don't really remember the storyline much of the second one. I know, like, that's where he finds his wife, so I guess it's kind of that storyline stuff, but I don't remember what it is specifically. But it's fun. Anchorman 2. Honestly, I laughed more watching Anchorman 2 than the first one.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there. Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Well, my caveat is honorable mentions are typically all the movies I've watched from that year, typically. So, Secret Life of Walter Mitty was a movie I watched before I really was getting into movies. So, it was too artistic for me. I think because back then I enjoyed more realism than artsy looking things. And so the artistic side of Walter Mitty just was not working for me. But now I'm more open minded. And I think, especially, with Severance being one of my loves, makes me want to revisit Secret Life Walter Mitty. That has Ben Stiller directed it.
Yeah.
Monsters University, I'm not super crazy about. There's fun moments, yeah, but not the biggest fan. Yeah. We're the Millers is one of the first movies I watched with my roommate. Not the first one. I think maybe the third one that I watched with him. Yeah, so that's cool. That I remember that. So it's a time. I I think maybe my roommate might have a little overhyped it as a comedy, and I didn't necessarily find it as funny. But also, comedy is subjective, so one to another. But it's a movie. I don't necessarily mean to say that negatively, but whatever. I'm just noting things. That's all I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
All right, so these next three, About Time is one of my roommate's favorite movies. So I think it's a solid movie, but it hasn't clicked for me yet. I remember talking to a former coworker, and he said something similar. Like, first time he watched it, didn't click for him, and then one time in the future, rewatching it, like, start sobbing, and it's in his top 4, and so, so maybe that will come for me one day. I think it's a solid film, but it hasn't fully clicked for me. New World was a movie I watched recently. I think this last week. Korean film. I found a Blu-ray, bought it, so I was pretty solidly rated. It's solidly well told, but I wasn't really able to latch onto the movie, honestly. There's a few elements that I don't love, but in a general sense, like, it's a well told story, for sure. It's interesting. If you're interested in Korean movies, or uh, like mob, like, is mob the best way to say it? But mob, boss,
crime, or
crime,
organized
Gangster.
crime.
Gangster. Yeah, that would it'd be definitely an interesting movie to watch. I don't dislike it. It just doesn't work for me as much as it does for other people. And then a French movie, Sarah Prefers to Run. and this movie was shot by the Severance cinematographer, Jessica Lee Gagne. So I am in love with her work on Severance. So I wanted to see what else she's done. And so this is finally something I've seen that she's done that's not Severance. And the Severance is very stylized. So
Yeah.
obviously I think Severance pops more in a way than maybe something else would. But I still really enjoyed what I saw. If that makes sense. Because again,
Yeah,
like Severance,
yeah.
it's just incredible because it's just so boring and blank, but somehow they make it look so good. So obviously something so stylized in that way for me may pop a little more than something like this. And I'm not a cinematography expert. But I liked what I saw. The movie itself, if you like those kinds of stories of people living life and figuring things out, this is kind of one of those like slow, boring movies that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't necessarily say I love this movie, but I did like it. Again, I just find the concept of people living life and making decisions. Like there's a decently consequential decision that was made in here that's uh dare I say that may be joked about sometimes, but not often done, but was done here. And it's like, oh, okay. And how that just changes relationship dynamics, and it's quite a major decision to some degree, or yeah, I don't know. So like this kind of movie kind of scratches that itch of people living life. Again, I like movies, but because you hear and see different kinds of stories and see people make decisions, and it's just learning about people and stuff. Yeah. So very out of order of what the graphic shows, but yeah, those are my honorable mentions, or basically most every other movie I watched from this year.
Of this, I've only seen Monsters University and Despicable Me 2, which, I didn't really care for them.
Yeah, I've seen those. I think I have seen Anchorman 2, though I don't have any strong memories of it. I actually did recently watch The Secret Life of Walter Mitty because that's a favorite of a friend of mine. Um, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, especially like speaking of cinematography, the cinematography of it is very, very good. And they're filming in Iceland, so you're getting these grand vistas. Um, yeah, it's an interesting one. Again, the Iceland of it really endeared me to it.
Well, moving on to my honorable mentions. First up, we have My Little Pony Equestria Girls. This is an animated film that Hasbro made to promote their new toy line, which is always jarring every time I watch this film, but there's stuff to like. Uh, then we have another episode of Doctor Who. This is a Christmas special, so it's technically a TV movie thing, whatever, semantics. This marks the end of the Matt Smith era, and so there's a lot of emotional stuff in it, so yeah. Then we have a Makoto Shinkai film, 40-minute film called The Garden of Words, where these two people meet every time it rains in this garden of sorts. Um, Animation, absolutely gorgeous. When I watched this, I was like really mad and frustrated at how good the animation looked, how pretty it was. It was like, man, why can't Western animation look this pretty? The story, okay, the story like touches on some, almost goes into a territory that's pretty uncomfortable between the romance between a minor and adult. But luckily they didn't go that route. But if this was longer, I'm sure they would have went that route. Uh, then we have a Ghibli film called The Wind Rises about a airplane designer making planes for the war. There's more stuff, emotional stuff going on there, but that's the premise. Ghibli films, there's a feeling towards them, and yeah. Then we have The Hobbit 2: The Desolation of Smaug. Here's when they start to get really over the top and weird, and start to really dive away from the books. But the Smog stuff here is pretty cool. Then we have Captain Phillips, a Tom Hanks like history thing. Um, yeah, solid Tom Hanks film. Then we have The Wolverine, which is a film that caught me off guard because I had no idea that it was being made. At the time, I was like, "Oh, we're never gonna see these characters do a big film again." It's like, oh, like we've moved on to the new cast, and then out of nowhere, I go to the movie theater and they're promoting this new film. I'm like, "What? There's a new Wolverine film? How did I not hear about this?" And so I enjoyed it. It's there are better Wolverine stuff that have come out since, but it's a all right film. It has some cool stuff. And then the last thing I have to mention here is Frozen, because you kind of have to mention Frozen. Um, Back then, I enjoyed it. Before I got really tired of it because it was everywhere and became too popular. But back then, it was like, oh yeah, it's an alright Disney film. And I guess one last thing to mention, Man of Steel. I had no place to put it here, but it's a film.
Ostensibly.
Yep.
Yeah, of these, I've actually seen quite a few of them. I don't have a ton to say on all of them, but Garden of Words is one that I have seen part of because I love the animation. As you were saying, the animation is absolutely gorgeous, and I also love the rain. So those two things
Yes.
together are like, but for some reason I just couldn't get invested in it. This was many years ago, probably over a decade ago, that I tried to watch it and just didn't get very far. The Wind Rises isn't my favorite Miyazaki film, but it is really good. I mean, my least favorite Miyazaki film is better than most films that I have seen. So yeah, and this isn't my least favorite of his by a long shot. Desolation of Smaug, I actually like parts of this somewhat controversially, but I also very much dislike certain parts of it as well, especially like the romance stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But as you were saying, the Smog stuff is great. I like the Lake Town stuff, though it goes a little bit overboard in certain areas. Um, yeah, Captain Phillips, very good. The Wolverine, I'm not the biggest fan of that one, but I know people like that one. And Frozen, yeah, I remember liking it when I saw it in theaters, but then, as you were saying, kind of becoming less interested in it as it became more and more of a cultural thing. And it has certain things that I find frustrating in retrospect.
Yeah.
I'll talk about Man of Steel first, since it's not on the list, and I might end up forgetting it.
Oh, I
John,
forgot it.
yeah, do you want to spiel about that?
No, I don't have anything interesting to say about it.
John showed that movie to me. I bet I could pull up on Letterboxd. My guess is 22 or 23.
I think it was last year.
Last year?
I don't know.
Was it?
Last year, the
No,
year
no,
before.
no. It was before The Flash. It was before The Flash.
Okay.
Remember, I was like curious about The Flash, and so yes, it was May 23.
Okay.
So yeah, and I have never seen The Flash, so that's how bad word of mouth can get. But yeah, so Man of Steel was my first Superman movie, I believe, because yeah, I haven't seen any other ones. So I think it's a solid film. I'm one who, like I've said, I'm not the most like, oh my gosh, comic book accuracy, and I can respect different takes. So I like Man of Steel and I like Gunn Superman. I think Gunn Superman is more fun. So on a enjoyment aspect, I'd probably opt to rewatch Gunn Superman, but I still think Snyder's Man of Steel is solid. Really, my major gripe with Man of Steel is that the fighting at the end of the movie goes on for so freaking long.
It does.
And
It's like an hour.
it's an hour. And I think what's even worse is the fact that that big fight at the end, right before that, was a town getting ripped up. So we barely had any time to recover from that sequence happening. And then we go on to this super long fight. So it's just a lot. And with 15 minutes left in the movie to go, I wanted to give up. I can't lie. I was just like, I'm so done. So kind of by the time like the the climax happens, I just don't have any more energy in my body to care. So that honestly might be my biggest gripe with like the Snyderverse, is that I just don't care for the action sequences. I think the action sequences kind of period, but also just how long they go just makes me care about them less. But Snyder has good idea of style, specifically the beginning. I think his take on Superman is interesting. I don't think anyone should hate me for what I think about that. I'm pretty middle ground, if I'm being honest. Positively middle ground. All right, with on the list, I'd say, not out of pride, I've never seen Frozen. Just throwing that out there. I'm familiar with some songs here and there. I just haven't seen it. And one day I may. I have nothing against seeing it. I just haven't seen it. That's all. Just I'd say that, just because it's so popular. The Wolverine, I do really enjoy. I do enjoy Origins more, which I know that's somewhat controversial, but yeah, I do enjoy this Wolverine movie. I think I've only seen the extended cut both times I've seen it. Yeah, just enjoyable. Obviously, it's another action movie, so I'm not. There's not a lot of substance, and I'm not always one who's like, oh my gosh, I love action. But it's a fun movie. I think especially with like when I watched Origins and Wolverine finally clicked for me, it was fun to see another Wolverine movie. I think if Wolverine didn't really click for me, this movie wouldn't really work for me. The Hobbit, last episode, I honestly said my piece. But I will say with this one specifically, again, Smaug is great. I do like the boat town city thing. But there's an L cut in this movie that blew me away personally. I have written down in my notes, so I'll just write what I have written. Smaug says, "Don't bother denying it. I guessed his foul purpose some time ago, but matters not. Oakenshield's quest will fail. The darkness is coming." The scene visually cuts to Guldur, Gandalf's location, and then you hear Smaug say, "It'll spread to every corner of the land," and then you hear the ambience of where Gandalf's at kick in, and that just worked wonders for me. I was just my jaw kind of dropped. I was just like, oh my gosh, that just was amazing. So I really, really like that. I don't know if anyone else sympathizes with me, but I absolutely love that L cut. So
yeah, I mean, you describing it, I was able to imagine it in my head from having seen the film. I haven't seen it in a long time, but yeah.
I'm glad I did a terrible job reading that off.
I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch is difficult to impersonate.
That's true.
Well, why don't we?
And John, if you were curious, Wind Rises is in my watch list. Just I'd throw that out there. I think I've just added all Miyazaki to my watch list because I think one thing with like animation, it's almost like I want to kind of like see like some popular best things, so I have a better grasp for when I go deeper. So Miyazaki is kind of like one of those directors where I want to understand him better because I don't fully understand him.
Well, yeah. Speaking of Miyazaki, this is not a Miyazaki film, but my number one film, definitely related. It's The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. This is written by Riko Sakaguchi and Isao Takahata and directed by Takahata. And yeah, this was the idea with this film was that Studio Ghibli, they're two great masters who helped found the studio, Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata, who mentored Miyazaki. They were putting out their final film the same year. Miyazaki, of course, has gone on to make more films. Takahata, unfortunately, has passed away. But yeah, this is the final film from a filmmaker whose life spanned most of the history of Japanese animation, who was integral to the medium and its development. And yeah, he's kind of your favorite filmmaker's favorite filmmaker, especially if your favorite filmmaker is Hayao Miyazaki, because of course they worked so closely together. And yeah, this is based on the Japanese tale of a bamboo cutter who finds a baby princess in a stalk of bamboo, and he raises with his wife before the princess is eventually called back to heaven. Um, yeah, that's just the very basic outline of the folk tale, but Takahata was actually supposed to make an adaptation of it way back in the 1960s, but he struggled to find a way to connect to the material. But it clearly stuck with him for the next 50 years because he eventually figured out that he could make the film if he centered it on Kaguya's emotional journey. And yeah, that's what we get here. This is the result of 50 years of someone thinking about how do you make this film work for people. And the result is just, I mean, I can't even describe it. It's beautiful, it's tragic, it's life. It is the absolute pinnacle of Isao Takahata's career. Um the animation here is just so gorgeous. This was in production for a very long time. It was until The Boy and the Heron came out, it was the highest budgeted animated film from Japan, I believe, ever. Because yeah, they spent so long on just perfecting every detail. And yeah, it has this sort of watercolor style that sometimes the details are very sparse, sometimes it's very, very detailed, but you're getting the emotion so deeply. um there's a whole lot to say about this. I won't get too much into this. I have now seen pretty much all of the Ghibli catalog, and this is one that I hadn't seen for a while, but this is one that you will hear invoked. People who know Ghibli and who have seen a lot of Ghibli films will often say that this is, Spirited Away is great, Princess Mononoke is great. The real best Ghibli film is The Tale of Princess Kaguya. And people who haven't necessarily gone in depth with the studio don't necessarily know much about it, but yeah, it is, watching it I was like, okay, yeah, this is, I have to agree with that. um yeah, I have seen it twice, and both times it just absolutely knocked me over. It's just so gorgeous, and yeah, it's I can't describe it. Go and watch it for yourself.
Yeah, it is one of the best pieces of animation that you'll experience. It's so gorgeous and well done. The emotional weight of the story, of the character's journey, is very, very apparent while watching this. It is not my favorite story, so I don't have the same emotional connection as you might have, Jay, but just from the animation alone, it is a must watch film. So, yeah.
And it's in my watch list. I promise you.
Yep. Yeah, this is, if you're talking about animated films to see, to sort of, yeah, this is one that is worth seeking out. Even just like as John was saying, even if you don't connect fully to the story, the style of the animation is just so gorgeous, and the way it communicates the emotions that Kaguya is feeling, which is again so vital to the story. This is the entire reason Takahata made this, is that he found this way to connect to the story. And you can feel that personal connection come through, but also sort of a cultural connection. It is a very personal film, but also one that is dealing with like Japan and the modernization of Japan, the urbanization, in a way that like Takahata's other work, like Pom Poko, engages with that more directly. This is more evocative. But yeah, I don't know. This is probably the best final film any filmmaker has ever made, just in terms of how much it encompasses everything that has come before it. And it feels like such a definitive statement. And especially the last 20 minutes are just, I mean, incredible. Yeah, it is. There's nothing like it. I haven't seen anything that emotionally impactful before or since.
So my number one is Snowpiercer, which, for those wondering, it did release in America in 2014, but we're going by what Letterboxd says, and Letterboxd says 2013 because that's when it officially released, or originally released. Anyways, 2013's Snowpiercer, from director Bong Joon-ho. I saw this film 2 times this year, which is a little crazy. So, with the lead up to Mickey 17, my local Alamo Draft House showed Parasite and Snowpiercer in theaters, and I was like, yeah, I want to try to go to those, and so I was able to. And then after seeing Mickey 17, there's some people there who had never seen Snowpiercer, and someone was like, "Oh, you guys want to see Snowpiercer?" So we watched Snowpiercer right after, which Snowpiercer is a more it's easier to get into Snowpiercer than Mickey 17 for
Yeah.
some people. So they enjoyed Snowpiercer a lot more. Mickey 17 is funnier. Snowpiercer, though, felt like crack the first time I watched it, because not that it's confusing like Inception, but it builds in a way that I knew nothing about this film. I had not seen, I just watched it because of Bong Joon-ho. That's the only reason I watched it. So it's kind of sad to me seeing of even the way it was marketed. I've just the first 40 minutes of the movie, you're just stuck in this gray area, and then it evolves in a way that I did not see coming. And oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, it's so wonderful whenever you watch a movie like that and you just don't see things coming. So,
Yeah.
And then, unlike some people, I enjoy a tragic ending. I probably shouldn't have said that if I'm so keen about not talking about spoilers, but I apologize. Anyways, if we did want to cut that out, I honestly really enjoy the ending as well. I just remember kind of just being almost on my feet, on my seat, kind of position, just kind of oh my gosh, what? Just yeah. So first time I watched it, felt like crack. And so sadly, future watches haven't necessarily lived up to that because again, I know it's coming. It's not like a surprise of how it evolves, but it's still a really good, solid movie. Yeah, I like this movie.
It's not that I don't like tragic endings. I just don't really care for Bong Joon-ho's endings. Anyway, yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff to respect for this film. It's a very much a messed up retelling of Willy Wonka in a sense, but yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, this is one that I absolutely adore. This was actually the first Bong Joon-ho film that I saw. I saw it. I remember specifically. I saw it winter break 2015 on Netflix. I can remember where I was when I watched it, and yeah, it just absolutely blew me away. I had no idea what I was getting into, but it just, I mean, it is so well made. Like every once in a while, I'll be like, I'll remember specifically the first big action scene, which I don't want to spoil what it is, but just like the way it is edited and the way the tension ratchets up as like Chris Evans is like grabbing a gun and put it from a soldier, like putting it to his head, like shoot me, I dare you, shoot me. And yeah, where it goes from that, just like, oh, it's so excited. I rewatch that scene like once every couple months because it's just like, yeah, it's just so energizing. Tilda Swinton, I love Tilda Swinton. She's my favorite actress. She is going insane here. I have a theory that anytime a an international auteur is like making their first English language feature, like as they're going like, hey, I think I should make an English language feature. I think Tilda Swinton just magically materializes in the room with a pen, like, where's the contract? I'm signing on. Because she just clearly loves showing up for these auteurs and just be like, hey, whatever you want me to do, you want to give me the most ridiculous set of false teeth ever? I'm doing this. I'm game. Yeah, no, this is just, it's so good. It is fascinating. It isn't my favorite of Bong Joon-ho's films, but it is so entertaining and well made and also like has depth to it. This feels like before Parasite, if I was introducing someone to Bong Joon-ho, this would probably have been my go-to. Because it is so, and even still, like if I was introducing someone who isn't super into subtitled films, this feels like it's a very accessible film for people to get into. Chris Evans, just great to see him in a non-Captain America thing. He has a specific line that I am always surprised more people don't take out of context. Yeah, I won't spoil anything, but it's for people who have seen it. He mentions that he knows something tastes best. That I'm surprised doesn't, people don't clip out of context. But yeah,
don't give him ideas.
No. Yeah, just thinking about this, I'm like, oh, I love this more than the wild thing is I've only seen this film once.
Really?
Yeah, I own it on Blu-ray, but I only watched it the one time before I even had it on Blu-ray. It's just been one that I've been meaning to rewatch and haven't gotten around to, but I mean, I will eventually because I do love it so much. I will also say, this famously was produced by the Weinstein Company, and Harvey Weinstein didn't like it, so he tried to bury it. But a little bit of satisfaction here. My favorite anecdote about the making of this is there's a scene where people are they're getting ready for this fight, and they're putting like fish guts on their axes, and Harvey Weinstein hated that scene. So Bong Joon-ho told him that his father was a fisherman, and so this was a very important scene for him. That was a complete lie. His father was not a fisherman. He just didn't want to cut the scene, so he lied, and Weinstein had to keep it in. But yeah, just very fun anecdote and a very good film. I haven't seen the TV show, but I love this film so much that I am curious to watch the show.
Yeah, John, do you change your mind now?
No.
Do you at least remember the action scenes?
I remember thinking they were cool.
Okay.
Like specific visuals are a bit fuzzy, but like, a lot of this was cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. It's really just
even the concept is just
are just not my favorite thing.
Yep. That's fair. That he does have thorny endings to his films. Besides Mickey 17.
Well, moving on to my number one, I have another DC animated film, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns Part 2. Last month, my favorite was Part 1. This month, it's Part 2. This is the big climatic, emotional climax of the films, where big events like Batman, he fights Superman, he goes up against the Joker, like all the big stuff it happens here. But the reason why I think I would prefer part one is because this is a heavy dark film. Like they are really pushing the PG-13 on this one in a way that were again in later DC films whenever they did rated R stuff, they all felt tame compared to this. Um, but yeah, no, the film also has like a bunch of weird elements to it. Like the film opens up with a topless woman who only has swastika stickers coming covering her breasts. It's
Subtle.
subtle. It's really wild choices were being made. But besides that, there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. The Batman story is, great. This is what Zack Snyder always pictures when he thinks about Batman. So you can see a lot of visual elements that he borrowed from this. Specifically when it comes to Batman versus Superman, even like the confrontation with the Joker, it's so heavy, um, so violent as well. So it does stick with you. Uh, but yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one in many years, but I do remember finding it fascinating when I did watch it. Obviously based on a very iconic comic book, and yeah, I'll have to rewatch it at some point because I know how much you love it, John,
I mean,
and
yeah,
other people.
yeah. I mean, I enjoy the experience when I watch both of them together. But sure.
Yep.
Well, why don't we sour the mood? We're the least favorite.
Yeah. Um, so I went back and forth quite a bit on what my worst would be, to the extent that I was realizing just 5 minutes ago that I had the wrong movie on the slides here. So I have switched that out now. Though there, at least this won't be for people watching the video. You won't notice, but there are currently stills from the wrong movie in the slides because I didn't quite have time to last minute change stuff. But yeah, this is the Mortal Instruments City of Bones, um, directed by Harold Zwart and written by, let me get my notes a little better centered, written by I. Marlene King and Jessica Postigo. This is based on a YA book by Cassandra Clare about a young woman who discovers that she is part of a lineage of demon hunters who sort of exist in the shadows of modern society. Very urban fantasy. There's a magic school, there's ancient artifacts, there's special powers, there's a hot demon hunter boy with a sexy British accent, there's an overall hot topic mall goth aesthetic. This is, peak 2010s, post Twilight, middle of Hunger Games, supernatural YA, fantasy romance, whatever other things you want to add on top of that. Um, like a lot of failed franchise starters, this is all set up without any consideration for how to tell a contained story that is interesting. There are so many characters, so many locations, so many factions, so many like special magical powers, so many magical artifacts getting introduced and then not really being important to this story because they're going to be important to later stories apparently. um yeah, I doubt fans of the book like this movie since it is all so rushed, but it is also completely incomprehensible to anyone who isn't already familiar with the book, as I was not. um I have no idea half of the stuff that happened here. There are like plot twists. There are so many twists about what character motivations are or who they are really, that it's just like I can't keep track of who's who, and now you're telling me this person is actually that person. What's going on here? um yeah, it's I try to, again, I have Beautiful Creatures, which is another of this sort of trashy YA thing in here, but that one is at least a full story. This one is made as if they pre-assumed that they were getting a sequel, which ironically is probably why they didn't get a sequel, because this is so poorly constructed that no one cared for it. I will, however, give it credit for having queer characters and making their identity an important part of their story arcs. That's something even today with like the new Hunger Games prequel, or not the new one that is coming up, but the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, like cut out the queer character from the movie, um, though that was a relatively minor character in the book. So yeah, this just, it feels nice to see that, even though the movie is very bad and those characters don't have much to do, because no characters have much to do because there's too much going on. Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailer.
Yeah. Were you at all ever interested in this, or were you just
I think like I saw the trailer and I was like, huh, maybe there's a vague interest, but then I just forgot the name of the film and just never
fair?
yeah. Yeah, and then I just never was like, I'm not gonna look back on it anyway. So
So I didn't include any MCU films in my honorable mentions to build suspense for what would be in my worst. My preface with Thor: The Dark World is it exists. I don't hate it. I don't remember it, really. The end. So I think with Iron Man 3, I had a little more invested in because Iron Man is what got me into the MCU. I really like Iron Man, and so yeah, I wonder what it is about this movie because I kind of don't really know, except that I've never enjoyed it the 2 or 3 times I watched it. Maybe it's because it's a different director and maybe the style change was too jarring. Maybe it's because he's out of costume, which I know a lot of people like, and arguably it is kind of cool. But maybe I just want what again, like the bodiless costume playing around. It's fun, but um, yeah, I kind of don't know why I don't love this one. It's been too long since I've seen it. I am more open to stylistic changes at this point than I was when I initially watched it. Maybe I still won't like it. I don't know. But I think this one I had more like. It probably is a case of more of what I wanted and didn't fully get what I wanted. And so Iron Man 3 kind of ranks lower than like Thor: The Dark World because I mean I like the first Thor movie, but it's not like oh my gosh, Thor is my favorite character, and I probably was just really frustrated by Iron Man 3. It just really kind of shakes up the ground of of what I'd been comfortable with of what I've expected from the first 2 Iron Man films, whether, him in his lair and then he goes in costume and he fights and comes back and whatever. And then here like everything's gone. It's all gone. The what you knew is no longer there. Maybe I just found that really frustrating. So that's probably me thing. But then again, it's a Marvel movie. It's not that important. So if you're mad at me, grow up. But yeah, maybe I'll like this more in the future. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's just kind of how I felt about it when I watched it in the past. And so it kind of ends up in that bottom slot as a result. So yeah, Thor: Dark World didn't have as much emotional impact on me as this one has.
Yeah, I like Iron Man 3. I haven't seen it in a few years, but the certain elements that people get frustrated with, specifically a twist involving the villain, I actually really love that reveal. And I remember being in the theater and watching that and having my mind blown as like, oh, this is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't feel super strongly the need to defend it either. So yeah.
Yeah. If anyone's wondering, that twist didn't frustrate me because I am no comic book accuracy kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one that I was really excited for when it was coming up, but then when I actually saw it, I just didn't really care for it at all. In recent years, I've enjoyed it more. I know that I, for one, didn't like the twist villain thing, not because of comic accuracy, but because I thought what they did was pretty lame. Uh, but yeah, I think it's one that I enjoy better in retrospect than just experiencing it in real time. So yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then moving on to my least favorite film of the year, we have A Good Day to Die Hard, or Die Hard 5, which was one too many, or depending on who you ask. But this was definitely one too many. None of what made the Die Hard films fun or great or is really here. Like Bruce Willis definitely phoning in the job here. None of like the stuff that makes those films interesting is here. Here they're set in Russia and it just looks blech. The story is blech. The characters, the side characters are all blech. It's not very memorable and it's not really good. So it's if you're ever watching through the films, stop at 4. The fifth one doesn't exist.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one. Is this the one that they took a different movie's script and then turned it into a Die Hard movie?
It feels like that because it doesn't feel like Die Hard at all.
Okay. I feel like because there's at least one of these um where it's the one with Kevin Smith in it, I believe, where they had a script that was like a Die Hard type movie, and then the studio was like, hey, why don't we just make this a Die Hard? And so they just made it a Die Hard.
Never mind. Never mind. That's not that one.
Okay. I think it happened multiple times with Die Hard, so this one might also be.
The Kevin Smith one felt more like Die Hard than this one.
Okay.
This one
Well, I
feels
might be
like
misremembering. I might be
this feels like
misremembering then.
nothing. Feels like generic action movie, low budget action movie.
Yeah. I know at least one and potentially multiple were not originally planned as Die Hard movies. So
That's
yeah, if
pretty
this one
much
feels
most
like it
Die Hard
wasn't, then it's
films.
probably this one.
Even Die Hard 1 wasn't supposed to be that film. So
Fair.
Um, so yeah, that's what we have for the year of 2013. Year that I enjoy for the most part. Maybe not so much for films, but just being excited for being alive. Uh, yeah. Next time around, we're going on to 2014, which is probably my favorite year for films.
Okay.
There's, yeah, I love that year. We saw a lot of films that year. There's a lot of stuff to talk about that year, and we'll talk about that next month, and then we'll be all caught up, with our journey here, because we
Yeah.
started this in 2015, and now, hey, that should be something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.